Good afternoon, everybody. We are going to talk about a 2005 Aldi Allroad 2.7 Turbo. We're going to give you the history on this vehicle and what the issues were. Okay, this vehicle supposedly was sitting at a shop in the local area. I'm not going to give any information on who the shop was for privacy purposes. Um, this vehicle was supposed to get an alternator job, and it sat at the dealership, not the dealership, sat at the mechanic shop for over a year. They didn't do anything to it. Supposedly the window was left open, and it had 4 feet of water in it. Um, so the woman that I knew that I sold my other car to, she knew I worked on cars, and she wanted me to look at the Aldi. And supposedly the guy who owned the shop had I guess they knew a towing company that tows their cars for them, and they told them, I guess AAA and their towing company would not tow this vehicle unless it had a registered tag on it, which I'd never heard that before, especially in Florida. Usually they can still tow it without a tag as long as it's yours, but now they require that. Supposedly it sat for over a year. The seats were messed up. The carpet was so soaking wet. One of the employees had to get all the water out of the vehicle. It smelled very bad. There was so much moist inside the vehicle, and you could feel it, especially in Florida when it was here in the summer. It's actually still sitting here. It was here in the summertime, and you could see the windows were completely fogged up. So I let it air out for 3 to 4 days when I was outside the car where I was working on it, and we did notice that the radio was messed up, screen was busted. The transmission control module, which I think is what it was because it was on the driver's side, which was kind of weird for this car. I could be wrong. It was flooded with water and contamination, and some of the capacitors were missing. And I'm going to tell you one thing: this car will never run right again, because I called around for the customer. Supposedly, they have no computers for this car. Can't find these cars anywhere. I could find '07 models and up, but I found a couple '05s, but doesn't have the same size engine, and the modules were different. Um, so we're trying to look and see what else we could find for this vehicle, but since the lady now knows that she doesn't want to fix it no more, because since it's never going to run right, she was going to give it to her son to take the motor or whatever. But they're supposed to come by and get it today. I complained about her coming to get it. She was supposed to, and hopefully she does. Um, but yeah, as you can tell, you can see, well, can't really see it now because I washed it, but when it was sitting behind the shop in a bunch of weeds, um, all the mud was like up to here, but technically the water was like up to here in the inside of the vehicle. The tires were full of mud. This whole exhaust was clogged up with water all the way up to this line here, completely flooded. um, and you can see the same thing. It was actually right here too, but underneath the vehicle, it's still full of like dirt and a little bit of nest from like spider webs and stuff like that. Um, this is what the front of this vehicle looks like. See, I think it's called a quatto or a quanto. I'm not really familiar with these vehicles too much. And as you can tell, these are the original OEM rims for this vehicle. These tires are old. All these tires were completely flat when I got it. I had to air them up, clean up the vehicle as best as I could. There was no body damage or anything. Besides, it had all this scruff from when it was sitting forever. And the windshield was busted due to Hurricane Milton when it was here, and I told the customer about it. She told me not to worry about it because she's not going to do anything with it. She's just going to either sell it for parts or whatever. I'll show you what the inside of this thing looks like. Oh yeah, by the way, this is what the roof looks like. This was the fully loaded version. Had the sunroof, the antenna deal. Right now, whoa, you could smell it too still. It still smells like moist. And it smells like an Aldi at the same time. It smells like feet and underwear. And as you can tell, I mean, all this stuff here, I like this type of interior. It's got that luxury look. I do like how it has all these settings. I don't know much about this car. But she told me it used to be a very nice vehicle. She said the seats were not ripped up before until they got a hold of it. But it has all the black carpet and everything. I don't know what this is. I looked online and some places have said this was the transmission control module, but it's not the relay or fuse box because the fuse box is actually underneath there. And as you can tell, they had these wires right here disconnected, especially this one. And I was going to try to figure out where it was all going, but since I'm not the one who messed with it last, it's one of those things you do a wild goose chase or just look around. Since the owner doesn't want to put no more money into it, we're not even going to worry about messing with it. But I looked online. The only thing I could find familiar is this is a transmission control module because the ECM is under the hood and the fuse box is over there. So, I took this thing out. I've let it sit in the sun for 6 hours, got drained all the water out, tried to clean it up. The connectors are just falling apart in pieces. They're so corroded. There's so much water contamination, so many white spots, rust. And I told her, until you can find another one of these, this vehicle will never run right again. And I seen how all these wires were all this carpet was just wide open when they were trying to take the water out, I guess. It is missing something here. But what I don't understand is like, how in the hell, I thought this went up here, but this wire does not stretch enough. I tried pulling it before to see if it was just tucked in. Nope, did not work. But this vehicle does have some pretty good looking RPM. Instrument cluster. The vehicle doesn't even have 200,000 miles on it. You can tell the screen's messed up. The radio is completely cracked. It has two big giant white spots in the center, so we know it's bad radio, but the owner said it was actually stock. It does not have tinted windows at all, maybe in the rear a little bit. And you can tell the headliner's starting to fall a little bit. It's got a black interior. The center console, this thing is completely broke, or this is just from age from a pilling, because this looks like it's just fabric pieces that just comes off over time. It's got, AC controls, and the whole 9 yards there. The buttons are starting to wear a little bit. The glove department and everything's connected and works. I did vacuum this vehicle out as much as I possibly could at the time. And, and this is all the lighting, the dome lighting and stuff. There's missing stuff here. Like, you can feel free to comment if you know what any of these features are. I'm just talking, telling you what the history was on this vehicle and what I know. The lady did say that, like I said, she said it was a very nice vehicle. They'd taken really good care of it. She wanted to sue the shop who was dealing with this vehicle. And they told her that for them to sue, the insurance company would actually have to take her vehicle. And she said she loves this vehicle. She does not want to get rid of it. I even offered to buy it from her. But she was asking me, she's like, could you rip the carpet out and all that other stuff? And I was like, I can, but then she gave up on it. She said all this vehicle really needed was an alternator change. This alternator here was actually the right alternator. I mean, it fit on the engine perfectly, but the connectors would not fit on this alternator. They were different. So I called Aldi, which was the closest one, was in Gainesville, Florida, and they asked me, "Oh, is it the 2-pin pingtail or is it the other connector?" And they didn't really give me any much information. It's like, I don't know, because the connector that was actually on this vehicle was broken off by the previous person who was working on it, so I have no clue what it looked like. So we've ended up finding the right one for $40. I got it, reconnected the wire and everything. That worked perfectly fine. This is the old alternator here. That's what it looks like. And there's nothing wrong with this alternator. I really don't feel like taking all this out, to be honest. But when I looked up the part number on this, they said that it was a made for a Nissan Altima. It did fit an Aldi. But it's kind of weird how the mounts and everything match up. It's just the connector. I've always had a thing about these. The only problem is if you got kids, these things tear up pretty easily when you start pulling on them all the time. Man, I didn't realize there were shades back here. That's funny. Some old, looks like lady shades. They look like they're like a purplish color, maybe like a dark tannish. Has the rear AC. It has these little child protectors, window protectors for this, like sun visors. These roll up and roll down inside the window. And I did notice that every one of these doors has a damn ashtray. I noticed, which you can see. It's got, every one has like a door, and each one of these had a mask in it. Probably when it was drivable, when COVID was around. I think they was wearing mask. The window's perfect. It was really nasty. I got most of it off. I tried to rinse it off today because the owner was supposed to come by and get the vehicle today. Okay, and that's this door panel. It's got the same stuff here. Automatic locks and windows. And same here. Seats are damaged, and I looked in all this carpet. There's not much water in here anymore because it's been sitting for over a month, but all the water kind of treasured into the back when I had the vehicle jacked up. So now whatever water's left is probably sitting out on this end, but we all know how flooded cars are. As you can tell, they all have the same stuff. It looks like Aldi kind of made sure that all the futures in the interior was matching equally for all the doors. Let me see if this hood's actually still open. All right, if you want to know how to open a hood on the Aldi allroad, there's no latch on this vehicle, because when I started working on it, I pulled the hood and I was like, where's the latch? Actually, the latch is right here on the Aldi, on the right side of the Aldi emblem. You just pull and it opens. Oh, I guess the toad's not in here anymore. This is the engine I worked on. It was the 2.7. I had to take the whole entire hood off and everything. I had to pull this whole thing out as one assembly. Pull this whole cage, this whole A-frame plastic piece off, and I had to pull all this out. And to get to the alternator, I had to clean up the ground, put all the star bit bolts back in, cleaned out her air system, put brand new air filter in. I just don't like this design because this thing's a pain in the butt to pull out, because you gotta take this off first because these wires don't stretch. If you pull on this with this on there, you're either gonna break this or you're gonna break these wires. And I never worked on Aldi until a month ago, and I did notice with these Aldis, if you're not careful, you'll break shit, and you may not be able to get the parts for it, because I don't like these clips. That's why I never wanted to take these off, because I was afraid that, well, if you take this off and it breaks, you're going to be screwed. So I didn't want to take the chance. So I didn't take the chance with this either. I just took this off, cleaned it out, put the new air filter and everything in, and slide it back underneath by pulling on this a teeny bit for leverage. And I had to change the oil, and I had to flush all the cooling out of the system, clean this out, and run all new. And the oil was really black and was really dirty, so since the vehicle sat for over a year, and it was it was in like 4 feet of water. I changed it all. There was no contamination, but the antifreeze was really dirty. Had a bunch of leaves and dirt and other particles that was inside, so I know it was already contaminated. Um, I think there's my pliers. I was looking for these. Now I know exactly where they were. Holy crap! It's my Heart brands, my good small ones. I would say the most pain in the ass part on this vehicle was taking this headlight out. For some reason, this one, when all the bolts were loose, it was hanging up of here, and this damage was already done by whoever was working on it before me. It didn't want to pull out, so I had to pry it out because something was holding it in, and there was just really nothing holding it in. I just didn't know what it was, but that one came out easy. Another thing that was really a pain in the butt on this vehicle is this. When they designed this vehicle, I noticed on these Aldis, they used nothing but Starbit. Luckily, I had the whole Starbit kit, like the big ones, just like the T40s, that had like the T60s. These little things here, these little small ones, are a pain because they want you to take this whole entire bracket off and take the bottom bolt out of the bottom of that and pull out to be able to put these in. These only take the really small ones, because if you don't take this bottom bolt that holds the fan down on the bottom of the A-frame, and you take these 2 bolts out and you just pull up, you're going to end up breaking that fan. And this shroud piece is really cheap and piece of junk, so that will break off easily if you're not careful. But you can still attach it. This thing here too is a pain in the butt. I don't like how they design these. You got to take the whole tire and everything off to get this out. And they use 2 washer pumps on this one, which I don't understand why they need 2 washer pumps, especially for a small SUV. But they did. And the customer wanted me to put a brand new battery in it. She bought the battery for Amazon. And I think that's a pretty big battery for an Aldi. And it's brand new and it works. I just kept it unplugged because she said the battery kept draining. And I found out why the battery was draining. Because the person who had the vehicle last put a stereo system in it. And the reason why it was draining, because when they had the power wire and there's an amp in the back, they actually had, I don't ever do this, they had the power wire run into the battery like normal, but they were using the ground wire to the amp and ran directly straight to the negative of the battery. And I guarantee that's what killed it, because when I was growing up, we knew not to ever do that because that's what drained the battery. I told him, I was like, if you ever run an amp, don't run the ground to your battery. Run it to like the back seat, like the bolt to the back seat, because it mounts to the chassis, or do it to where the spare tire is, but don't ever mount it to the battery. And then come to find out, it doesn't drain anymore. So, and I told her, I was like, it runs. I moved it. It had no gas in it. I put a little bit in it. It took about 5 minutes for it to actually crank. It had so much air in the system from when it did run out of gas. So, and we're hoping, she's supposed to come pick today. I told her it's drivable, but I was like, since I'm not the one who had the vehicle, and since the alternator thing's hooked up correctly the right way, and since the transmission control module or / the BCM, whatever that module was, if it's all messed up, the vehicle will not run right. So I have no clue if the vehicle, because right now the lights don't work as far as the bright light. I mean, there's no turn signals. There's no emergency lights that work. Her instrument cluster lights up. Her radio lights up. But she has no horn, and her speakers don't work. And that could be due to, if it's the BCM, then that could be most of the problem. And so when it comes to the charging system, I think that might be a whole different setup. I don't know how these Aldis are designed, but the BCM doesn't control anything when it comes to the alternator. I know that most of the newer vehicles, or mostly a lot of the vehicles, the ECM has to communicate with the BCM and the transmission control module to be able to get all the data it needs. So I'm hoping this video helps about the history on this vehicle. And just remember, this is a 2005 Aldi allroad station wagon. It's not an A6. It's not a A5. Actually, I think it's an A5 or an A. She said it was an A6, but I don't see how that's an A6. I know the newer ones look like they're an A6. This looks like an A4. I could be wrong. I ran the VIN number, but it says it's an A4. But even when I called the junkyard about a BCM, they sat there and said, well, for you to get the ECM or the BCM out of this car or a transmission control module, it has to come exactly out of a 2005. Can't come out of anything any older or anything any newer than 05. All right, this is the review on the 2005 Aldi Allroad. Feel free to comment, and y'all have a great one.